Arabs are watching Hamas leaders that are spending their time in fancy hotels in Qatar. Life is good for them, while the Gaza people are suffering the consequences of Hamas extremism and barbarism. Hamas leader Musa Abu Marzouk, one of Hamas leaders, is giving an interview, and he openly says, we dug those tunnels to protect our militants, not to protect the people of Gaza Strip. One of the interesting criticism I came across in the Arab world, an Egyptian commentator named Ibrahim Issa. Ibrahim Issa says to Hamas, he said, for the last 20 years you took over Gaza Strip, since 2007. You spent billions building those tunnels, fortifying those tunnels with cement that was supposed to be for building of hospitals and schools and other things for the people of Gaza. And he said, okay, never mind, you didn't do that. But didn't it occur to you to build one shelter for the people of Gaza? Not just to shelter your militants and your assets. So the anger in the Arab world is obviously boosting, and the anger on Hamas in the Arab world is obviously very much emphasized. And there is this element in the anger of the Arab world over Hamas, which is an interesting aspect, additional one, but from a different perspective. I said that, Hamas is not only not interested in defending the people of Gaza. Hamas wants to see as much as possible civilians killed in Gaza Strip. So that's the reason why Hamas is operating from these populated areas. That's the reason why Hamas is not taking care of sheltering those people. And the issue here is that from Hamas perspective, the more children are being killed in Gaza Strip, or the more civilians are being killed in Gaza Strip, it's good for Hamas, because Hamas knows, unfortunately, that it will get immediate solidarity with the international community. It will get immediate support by the international community. And that brings me to some of the things that we see very clearly this war, and this is what's going on in Europe and in the States, when you see that the presence of large communities of Muslims in Europe and Arabs, and also circles that are identifying with more progressive and leftist circles are actually, are coming together around this whole issue of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and the killing of innocent people and so on and so on. So we got in some kind of an unholy alliance between Hamas, who deliberately, knowingly, and intentionally sacrifices people of Gaza for Hamas' own interest, together, and he's coming together with progressive leftist circles in the world. There is something interesting also about the whole issue of the demonstrations of Muslims and Arabs in Europe. We saw that in London and Paris and Berlin and other places. It's very emphasized. Those demonstrations are very emphasized. Among other things, one of the reasons they are so emphasized is because it's in a sharp contrast to the silence of those communities in the West. For example, vis-a-vis the whole story of the war in Syria, a bloody war that goes on for 12 and 13 years, or vis-a-vis the war that goes on in Sudan for a couple of months, and other places in the region where hundreds and thousands of Arabs and Muslims are killed by their own brothers. So this is yet another aspect that I've been watching. It's not new, but this time it feels like it's much more emphasized.